If you were to draw up the perfect plan for an incoming college quarterback to follow throughout his college career, it would look exactly like the track that Arch Manning is currently on at Texas. This is QB Unfiltered, my take, year 3 of the Manning plan.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up.
Okay, since high school, it is my belief that the Arch Manning family and his support staff, which includes his 2 uncles and his grandfather, of course, his dad, Cooper, have had this plan in place for him. It goes something like this. Sign a scholarship and go play for a QB-friendly offense constructed and coached by a QB-friendly and knowledgeable head coach / QB guy / offensive coordinator, redshirt your freshman year. In year 2, compete for the job, but know that you're going to be the backup. In year 2, get those extremely valuable game experience reps. Do not transfer. Let the natural maturation process do its thing with the help of a great strength training program. Learn the game not only from your head coach, Steve Sarkisian, but the guy you're backing up. And in year 3, you're handed the keys to the Corvette and you hit the ground running. So guys, it does not matter what type of generational talent at the quarterback position you are coming out of high school. It does not matter what your last name is. It doesn't matter what statistics you put up and what your DNA is. What Arch Manning looked like when he first stepped foot on the University of Texas campus and what he looks like now heading into year 3 is night and day. And that's the way it is for every quarterback that plays college football. Year 3 is the magical year. Now, the things that I'm going to talk about today in this video, I'm talking about through experience. You know, I coached quarterbacks for 36 years, but it was a 17-year stint as the head coach at Santa Rosa Junior College in California, where I used this equation and this process with my quarterbacks every year. I had my guys for 3 years. Year 1, they came in and gray shirted. Year 2, you compete for the job, but you're the backup quarterback and you get those game reps. Year 3, and in junior college, this will be your only year as a starter. You hit the ground running, you light it up, you break records, and you sign a scholarship to go play at the next level. So everything that Arch Manning has done up to this point in time has followed that exact equation, that exact system that I had in place when I coached at the junior college level. And this is how it breaks down for Arch, year 1. So in Arch Manning's case, we all know that he played high school ball in New Orleans, Louisiana. So as a incoming freshman and moving to Austin, Texas, he is dealing with the newness of a new state, a new city, new living arrangements, a new campus, and academics kicked up to a degree. Okay. And that's not even talking about the football stuff. So when you move into the football part of it now, you've got a new coaching staff, new quarterback coach, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new system. And to go with that, you're dealing with the increased speed level of the guys you're throwing to, your receivers, and you're having to deal with the increased speed of the defensive people that you play against. We'll talk about that more as we go. We talked about that new offensive system. He's able to learn it at his pace. Going into fall camp, he's not having to cram in that playbook in a short amount of time trying to get ready for game 1 in the 2023 season. We talked about the speed of the defense. Okay. It does not matter if you're Arch Manning or you're Joe Blow. You are still competing on Friday nights in high school against high school caliber defensive players. So the jump up in speed and ability is quite an eye-opener. Now, part of this plan by the Mannings, and again, this is just my opinion. This is the way I look at this. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think I am. Part of their plan, and I've said that this is year 3 of the Manning plan. I think it's a 5-year plan for him. my opinion. All right. Part of that plan was that when they talked to Sark about him going and playing at Texas, that it was going to be that he shirted in year one. It did not matter what happened with the competition or the quarterbacks on roster. He was going to shirt in year one. And then I also feel pretty strong about the fact that it was also talked about that he was going to be the backup in year two and be the starter in year three. Now, why do I say this? Because you've got a ton of high school quarterbacks in the history of college football that were thrust into the starting position too early in their career and ended up kneecapping their career because they couldn't handle it. They could not handle the frustration, the failure, the inconsistencies that come with playing Division I football as a true freshman quarterback. I believe that that was all in Manning's plan to begin with. They weren't going to let that happen to him. Okay, year one, growing physically and mentally. Okay, we talked about the natural maturation process. The transformation is from boy to man, and physically, he's gotten on a great weightlifting program, strength program. He's eating well, training table. I don't know if you can still say that with college football, but he's eating well. And I mean, there have been pictures that are floating around social media that show him now in year three, walking around without a shirt on, and he's jacked up. And that happens with just about every quarterback that goes into college and what they look like in year three versus year one. The other thing is the mental part of it. So, I'm not sure what kind of scheme and system he ran in high school. I know he did throw the ball around, but it's a jump up, obviously, a little bit more sophisticated and intricate for Sarkisian's offense at Texas. And the defensive looks that he's getting are way more complicated than what he saw in high school. And that's something that takes guys a long time to get used to. So in high school, most of the time, coverage wise, they're going to line up and play what they lined up in pre-snap, right? In college, they're going to line up in one coverage look, and on the snap of the ball, they're going to rotate to another one. And defenses that stay in the same coverage that they show pre-snap, those guys get eaten for lunch. At the D1 level and the guys that Texas is playing, those guys are running some wild stuff on defense with some really sophisticated looks. As a true freshman, those were brand new to Arch Manning. His second year in the program this past season, he was starting to get somewhat of a handle on it. Going into year three now, he's seen everything. Okay, year one, watching and learning from Quinn Ewers. Okay, what are we learning from Ewers? We're watching practice habits, how he handles practice, how he handles himself in meetings, right? What he does when he's stretching, what he does in the drills, what he does in team, observing all of this. His leadership style. How does he communicate with not only his offensive teammates, but his teammates in general? In-game management. How does he run Texas's offense? How does he handle adversity? How does he handle his success in the course of a game? How does he handle it when Sark is chewing his ass? Okay, those are all things that Manning has watched now for the last 2 years with a veteran, a guy that's been through the battles. Year one, learning from his head coach, Steve Sarkisian. I've said this before on other shows. Sark was a hell of a college quarterback. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to coach the position. And yes, I realize that Steve Sarkisian's title is head coach. I know he's not listed as the OC. I know he's not listed as the quarterback coach, but yeah, okay. Anyway, Arch Manning picking Sark's brain, learning the ins and outs of playing the position. Sarkisian played it at a high level at BYU. And like I said, he was a hell of a college quarterback with a lot to offer any one of his quarterbacks. Studying opposing quarterbacks in year one, he dressed for every game that Texas played home and away. And I'm sure Arch has been watching these opposing quarterbacks and what they do on the field. And then finally in year one, settling in with the press corps in Austin. You know, the University of Texas football is a big, big deal. And those guys are getting covered 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's learning how to deal with that press, learning how to deal with the social media that surrounds Texas football. And that's part of his year one learning curve. Okay, year two, he turns his clock on his eligibility and he competes for the job. Year two, going into this last season, Arch is a year smarter. He's a year stronger. He's a year better as a quarterback. He competes with Quinn Ewers, but again, he knows that Quinn's the guy and he's going to be the backup. Now, here's the difference between year two and year one. One of the differences. In year two, now, Arch has the very, very realistic factors staring him in the face that Quinn Ewers is one snap away from Arch being the guy. And so now he's preparing, he's competing to play, he's competing for the starting job, but he is now preparing himself on a weekly basis to go in and play if Texas needs him. And unfortunately for Quinn Ewers, they did this last year. And a bonus for Arch Manning, he was able to start 2 consecutive games and play most of the game running Texas's offense, right? That's a big one right there. Running the playbook, not running out the clock and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So now he's amped up his weekly preparation, ready to play on game day. He continues to work in all of the areas we talked in year one. And here's the most important part of year two, game reps. Live game reps are the single most important factor in a quarterback's development. And I've said this on other shows. It is not what a quarterback does between year one and year two that makes him good, that makes the difference in his career. It's the growth and what happens between year two and year three. That's why I say year three is the magical year for any quarterback, and it will be for Arch Manning as well, because you can practice all day long against the first unit defense for the Texas Longhorns, and you're going to get that skill level that they have on defense, and you're going to get that speed from the first team defense, but it's different when it's a different opponent in a game situation. It is different. Everything about it is different. And so Arch Manning has those year two reps now in his head and on his resume. And the most important game that he played last year in 2024 was that 2-series stint against Georgia, where he came in. Quinn was a little banged up, and he came in and played 2 straight series running Texas's offense and going against Georgia's defense. And I'm telling you, Georgia's defense last year was no joke. They were filthy defensively. And the one thing that jumped out at everybody was the speed that they had on defense. And I'm sure that Arch had not seen speed like that on the football field, even practicing against Texas's #1 defense. That game right there, that Georgia game, that 2-series stint that he had, is going to help him more than anything else that went down in the 2024 season. And now in year two, he's perfecting his weekly preparation schedule, you know, Sunday through Friday, what he's doing on a day-to-day basis to drill down and be ready to play on Saturday. He's perfecting that preparation. The other thing that is going to happen to Arch in year three, based on what he did in year two with the game experience, is the speed at which his eyes and mind and arm work speed-wise, right? So I've talked a lot about this past season. There were times where he got the ball out of his hand late, where he was throwing to the right receiver and he was throwing to the receiver who was open. He was just throwing it to him late. So as opposed to the guy catching the ball early in grass where he can stick his toe in the ground and go north and south, Arch was throwing it a tick late where the guy was catching the ball and getting tackled right where he caught it. And so that little pause from his eyesight to his brain to his arm getting the ball out, that will improve this year. And that comes through game experience and seeing it and filing that away and learning from that. And this is a pretty common problem with quarterbacks early in their college career. And I'm sure that Arch has watched a shitload of film on what he did last year in 2024. And he's looking at some of these plays I'm talking about where the ball's coming out late. And he's looking at it now with a third year maturity mentally, right? And he's shaking his head and going, wow, was that ball late? And that's the learning curve, right? That's the learning curve. And as a quarterback coach, you can pound this into your young quarterbacks' heads over and over and over, and you can drill it over and over and over about getting the ball out on time and seeing things faster. But until they do it in a game situation, until they see it in a game situation and then have the ability to go back and watch it on film, that's when it really registers for them. And again, that is part of the learning curve. And that's why year 3 is the magical year. Okay. And then at the end of year 2, when Texas walked off the field after their last game and Quinn Ewers walked off the field for the last time, Arch Manning at that point in time knew that the Texas Longhorn quarterback job was his. It was his. And everything about that moment changes what's inside of him. And at no time in year 1 and at no time in year 2 was there any thought in Arch Manning's mind or his family's mind about jumping in the portal and transferring out. Okay. And that's the beauty of what they've got going on in Austin, Texas. He followed the plan. He waited his turn. And now the payoff is about to happen. So that gets us to year 3 now, right? 2 years of prep to get to this season. And he's got total confidence going in. There is a big, big difference between being the man and being the guy that backs up the man, no matter how good you are. Okay. So like I said, as soon as Quinn walked off the field for the last time, Arch Manning became the man. And what that does for him more than anything is it gives him ownership of that offensive team and it jacks his confidence up sky high. So when you watch him on the field in fall camp, right? Texas has started fall camp and you listen to offensive coordinator or the offensive line coach talk about Arch Manning now in 2025. They all say the same thing, that his leadership has amped up a few notches, that he carries himself differently in fall camp in 2025 than he did last year in 2024, right? That everything about him just seems to have more swagger and more confidence. And that is a natural phenomenon, and that's what happens with college quarterbacks. So when Arch Manning lines up against Ohio State to kick off the Longhorns season this year, he's going to basically see everything that you could see coverage-wise in his Texas career. Now, I'm sure Ohio State will have a few new little wrinkles, but as far as defenses lining up in one look and spinning to another or rotating to another on the snap of the ball, disguising coverages and all that kind of stuff. And as far as the speed goes on defense, he saw that last year. So it's not going to be new to him. That's going to be old hat. And so he's been in a situation where it was bright lights, TV cameras, and ESPN, and that newness and that uniqueness to that, all that stuff is gone. And now he's just going to line up and play football. And his teammates know that he's the man, and 100% they're ready to follow him. little side note here on some dudes on social media that either were responding to posts that I put or things that I said on this channel, or just to other guys, right, on social media, where they're going, yeah, okay, if Arch Manning was all that, then why did he shirt, and then why did he back up this season? Why wasn't he the starter since day one if he was that good? And my response to that is, well, all of the things that I've covered in this show, plus this, it's the same reason that Joe Montana, Steve Young, Phillip Rivers, and some guy named Tom Brady didn't start until their third year in college. Okay. And then the other thing is, and I've said this on other shows, I think this is a 5-year plan for Arch Manning. So I don't believe that he'll come out at the end of this year. And a lot of people, say that, yeah, he might come back for next season, 2026. I think he's coming back for 2026 and 2027. He's going to let the natural evolution of being a 5-year guy in college take place. What's the hurry? He's making enough money. There's no big rush to get to the NFL. Enjoy yourself in college and continue to get better every year. Build your resume playing against high level competition. And when it's time to go to the NFL, it's time to go to the NFL. So I could be totally wrong on that, but I think he's on a 5-year plan, and this is year 3 of the Manning plan. Okay, like, share, and subscribe to the channel, QB Unfiltered. As always, I greatly appreciate the support. Let me know in the comments section if you agree with my take on Arch Manning. Do you think he's going to stay for a 4th and a 5th year? And, I've said that I thought that Cade Klubnik was the best quarterback going into the 2025 season. But I think when everything shakes out, Arch Manning is going to be QB1. Let me know what you think about that as well. Okay, this has been QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.